It's very rare that I go into detail on my personal life on the podcast about my mental health or something that I've been battling. Years ago, I did have a stint with mental health issues, but I was able to persevere and get out of it. And I didn't really get much help. I did have some, but I didn't feel that medicating and going to see therapists and stuff worked for me. Now, seeing a therapist did work, but I have gotten away from that. I really started concentrating on myself, working out, although I've been going away from it lately. I will be getting back into it. I will be getting back into it. But my guest today is Kevin Hines. He's the man who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and survived. He had issues with mental health, and when I heard about it, my brother just told me he spoke at his work. I immediately wanted to get him on. I didn't think it was possible to have him on, but he is coming on. He's coming on today. There's a Potter Brand podcast to tell his story and how he has dealt with mental health. For those of you who do have mental health issues, please reach out. Reach out to anybody. It's worth it.
Coming up next on the Zapata Brand podcast, he's one of only 39 humans to jump off the Golden Gate Bridge and live to talk about it. Today, he speaks around the world about mental health and is on a journey to have his story told to the masses. The Zapata Brand podcast welcomes Kevin Hines.
Kevin Hines, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, George. Glad to be here.
Okay, it's my pleasure, obviously. My brother saw you speak at his work at one of the hospitals that he runs. And he knows my history, and he really thought it'd be a good idea for us to connect. And normally on our podcast, we do a lot of mixed martial arts, boxing, any combat sports. So he knows where I'm at. If you could briefly, though, people who don't know who you are, if you could tell my audience exactly who you are and story is.
Sure, absolutely. My name is Kevin Hines. I live with bipolar depression. I in the year 2000, due to struggles with bipolar, hearing voices and seeing things that didn't exist to anyone but me, as well as manic highs followed by depressive lows, I found myself at the edge of the Golden Gate Bridge walkway, ready to leap off. And in fact, after hearing voices telling me I had to die, I did jump off the Golden Gate Bridge to try to take my life. I tried to die by suicide from lethal emotional pain. Thank heavens, thank the Lord above, thank God that a sea lion kept me afloat in the water until the Coast Guard boat arrived. The Coast Guard secondarily saved my life. And tertiarily, a surgeon named Dr. Jonathan Levin saved me the ability to stand, walk, and run. After that, I made a choice to speak out, speak up, and speak often about what I had experienced. And now I travel around the world 250 to 300 days a year, sharing my story of hope, healing, and recovery from people in brain pain, helping people of all walks of life who struggle with mental health crises, their loved ones, their family, their friends, find the light at the end of the tunnel so they can be here tomorrow and every day after that.
Well, Kevin, how do you think, right out of the gate, how do you think you developed this? Or is this something genetic, or is it something that you developed of PTSD, of what have you?
Well, both my biological parents had been diagnosed with manic depression in their day, what we today call bipolar depression. So I was genetically predisposed to the disease twice. So it was very likely that I would deal with it as I got older. My diagnosis occurred at 17 and a half years of age. So this was something that was definitely within my genes. And I think that we can label things, we can blame things, but my brain was in essence broken. And I've spent the last 20 years of my life trying to mend it and heal it and get better and find hope. And I want to share that hope with the world.
And that's very important nowadays. Obviously, it's escalated because of a social media presence. Things are more out there. You see it more so. And the fact that men it's harder for men to come out and say, I have some sort of mental disorder.
It is a lot harder, and more men die by suicide than women. More women attempt. But for example, suicide is the leading cause of death among males in Australia, for example. And you look at that and you go, why? And the reason is that men are traditionally taught by their fathers and their fathers' fathers to silence their pain, bury it, don't talk about it, get through it, forge onward, forge forward, be quiet. My suggestion to men is to unburden themselves, unsilence their pain, tell the truth about their pain to anyone willing to listen, because a pain shared becomes a pain halved. You don't have to live inside your pain alone. You can ask for help every time you experience it. And until you get the help, don't stop asking for help until it's acquired. And I think that's the difference between me and a lot of people who live with suicidal ideation, is that I still live with those ideations. But I do two things every time I'm suicidal. Number one, I find a mirror, anywhere, and I say my thoughts do not have to become my actions. They can simply be my thoughts. Number two, I turn to anyone willing to listen, and I say, I need help now. The difference between me and someone who dies by suicide is that I don't stop asking for help until I get it. So I'm working toward healing. I'm working toward recovery every day of the week to stabilize my brain, to stabilize my life, and to be an even keeled member of this society.
So what I gather out of that is that you still struggle to this day with that.
I do still struggle, and I still struggle regularly. And my goal is to find a way to truly heal from my diagnosis, so that I'm not struggling so much anymore, and so that I can go out to the world and share with them that they can heal too, that they don't have to always live in pain. You know, we want to spread a message of hope that leads to constructive thought, and the idea that you can overcome, you can not just survive, you can thrive.
Let's go back to the beginning. Who was Kevin Hines prior to this diagnosis?
Well, if we're going to do that, we got to go back to the very beginning, the time I was born. Born to biological parents who, before they had me, after they had me, they lived with drug and alcohol dependency. Mm. And because of that, my brother and I were removed from their home by foster care of social services and placed in foster care. In foster care, my brother died. He was the closest person to me. We both got bronchitis. He passed away. So I was a survivor from a very young age. And then at 9 months of age, I got taken in by the Hines family. And Patrick and Deborah Hines made me their son. They are my mom and dad. They saved my life. And I love them dearly. And had they not come into my life when they did, I don't know what would have happened, but it wouldn't have been good. And they gave me a future. They gave me hope. They gave me light at the end of the tunnel initially. And growing up, I really thought to myself, I've got this. I've got it made in the shade. You know, I got a great family. I got great friends. You know, nothing can go south from here. And then at 17 in high school, it all came crumbling down. I had a complete mental breakdown in front of 1,200 people. And from there, I went to see a psychiatrist, got on medications, but I was lying to the doctor. I was in complete denial that I had bipolar depression, and I wanted this disease to go away. I didn't believe it to be real. And I thought to myself, well, I was a WCIL wrestling champion. My football team, after I was on them, went to state. You know, how could this be my situation? And really, ego got in the way. It wasn't until 19, when I left off the Golden Gate Bridge to try to take my life, that my ego shattered. And I realized I needed help. I needed help every day from people that love me dearly and care for me. And I'm so lucky to have the support network that I do. So at 19, from 19 years of age till about 40 years of age, I would be in 10 psych ward stays for suicidal crisis. The difference is that the first 3 psych ward stays were involuntary, forced in against my will. The next 7 stays, I walked into those units and said, I need to be here or I won't be here. I saved my own life. I became self-aware with my diagnosis, self-aware with my issues, and I took responsibility for my actions. And so in doing that, I was able to save my own life, keep myself safe, and and fight to be well every day.
Can you take me back to the day at 19 you get to the edge of the bridge? Take me back to there, what you're thinking, so that people who are going through that now can see the warning sign.
So I was thinking that I was useless, worthless, and had no value.
But why? My question is like, why?
There was no
There
precipitating
wasn't.
answer to that question.
Okay.
There was nothing that led me to believe that I was worthless, had no value. I was worthwhile. I did have value. I just couldn't see it. It was brain pain. Your brain is the single most powerful organ in your body. It's mostly on automatic mode. It controls every action, inaction you take, decision, indecision, for lack of a better way of saying, if your brain is malfunctioning, there goes the rest of you. I guess the earlier why you can think about is that I struggle with food issues, and I struggle with eating too many too many inflammatory foods, foods that poison the gut. And when you poison the gut, you poison your mind. Your gut microbiome houses and creates all of your body's and brain's serotonin and dopamine, affecting your mental well-being. So if I look back on it then, I was probably eating too many processed foods that were damaging my brain's functionality and causing mental health symptoms, which is what they do. Food is medicine. If we eat certain foods, we can heal our minds. And so I wasn't doing that properly, which I still struggle with today, even though I know all the knowledge about it. I read all the books. I understand the science. I've got to get myself back on track. But my point is this. When I left off the Golden Gate Bridge, I probably was eating very poorly. And that probably played a pivotal role in my psychosis, which led me to leap off the Golden Gate Bridge to attempt to take my life, and in a way that is 99.9% fatal. When you hit that water, you hit at 15,000 pounds of pressure. Most people die upon impact. I am very, very lucky and blessed to be alive. I firmly believe that God saved my life that day. And I understand that people have different beliefs and different ideas about how that all might have worked, and that that maybe I was meant to live. But that's my prerogative. I'm not pushing that on anybody of your viewers or listeners. But I will tell you that for me and my perspective, God saved my life that day, and I can't deny that for my own self, and my own spiritual background and religious background. And a sea lion came to my aid in the water and kept me afloat until the Coast Guard boat arrived on me. This is Herbert, the sea lion right here. This is Herbert. This sea lion saved my life. I named him. I named him right when it happened because I was kind of delusional. I named the creature Herbert because it's my favorite name besides Kevin. Nonetheless, I get to be here. And in that getting to be here, I believe I have a mission to help other people do the same. And in 23 years of doing this work, in 23 years of speaking all around the world, in every continent but Antarctica, in 23 years of sharing stories of hope, healing, and recovery, hundreds of thousands of people have said this story saved their life. So my goal is to continue this work with my lovely wife, Margaret, and with anybody who wants to help me do good in the world, anybody who wants to connect and collaborate. I just want to reach more people, scale this thing, and help them save their own lives. You know, they give me credit for saving their lives, but I didn't do that. I'm no lifesaver. I'm a conduit. I give a message. They go home. They do the work. They're saving their own lives. They're asking for help when they need it. They're changing their perspectives and perceptions, which is incredible.
And on that point, now, when did you feel comfortable to do your first speaking engagement? Because you're kind of like, you're like going through someone's underwear drawer with, it's kind of like, that's a very, you're kind of opening thing. You're opening yourself up to a lot. When did you feel comfortable with saying, I'm going to tell my story?
Yeah. And I'm an open book, and a lot of people don't like that a lot of people don't want to be that about themselves. They keep things in, they keep things hidden from the outside world. I don't do that. I tell the truth about my struggles and strife and failures and follies and issues, because I know they're lessons. They're lessons for other people to change their lives. And I've seen it happen firsthand. And the first time this occurred, I was in my first psych ward stay of 10. After my physical hospital stay, I was still wearing my back brace and walking with my cane. And it was the first day I could put the back brace on by myself without help. It really was a tall order at the time, given that I broke my back in 3 places and shattered 3 vertebrae and had a complete titanium refitting of my back. And so I'm putting on the back brace, and the chaplain of the hospital walks in my room. His name was Brother George Cherry, beautiful man, black robe, white robe, sandals, the whole nine. And he walks in, he says, "Hey kid, what are you in for?" And I said, "Brother, I jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge." And he says, "Yeah, and I'm the Pope." He didn't believe me. He thought I was delusional because I was in the psych ward. I said, "Brother, no, that's what happened. That's why the back brace. That's why the cane." He said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." He sat down with me. He said, "Let's pray." And we said a prayer that I'm very familiar with as a Catholic. And he said, "Okay, kid, when you get better, you ought to talk about this." And I looked at him and I said, "About what? To who?" He said, "You'll see." Every day, Brother George Cherry would come into my room. Every day he would pray with me. Every day he would say, "Kid, when you get better, you ought to talk about this." On the final day of my stay, he approached me in the area near the door to leave the hospital. My father was walking me out, and he said, "Kevin, I expect you'll talk about this." And I was like, "Yeah, see you, buddy. Sure." Ignoring him. Well, I went to church a few weeks later with my dad, and the priest there, Father Michael Herman, walked out of the service that seemed to be talking right to me. And he said, "Hey, Kevin, so glad you came to the service. So glad you're back to church. Hey, would you ever consider speaking about your experience this Good Friday to our 7th and 8th grade class?" I said, "Oh, Father, I don't have a speech and I wouldn't know what to say." And my dad shoved me forward and goes, "He'll do it." And I was still with my back brace and walking with my cane. And I was like, "Dad, what are you doing?" And he goes, "You'll do it. We need closure." And I'm like, "Well, you need closure, old man. I need to go home and lay down." But I didn't say that. He's 6'1" and I'm not. I thought that. And so I said to Father Harriman, I said, "Well, Father, I'll see you this Good Friday." So Good Friday rolls around. I write a speech till 3 a.m, 17 pages to read aloud, 45 minutes. Timed it. I go to the rectory. 127th and 8th grade kids sprawled out and cross-legged on the floor in the same Catholic uniform I used to wear at the same school I used to go to. I read page by page from the page as I drop them to the ground one by one. I'm shaking and crying. It's very raw. 8 hands go up immediately. And I'm like, did that make an impact? I call on the kid in the back. He says the most inappropriate question you could possibly ask at that point. The nun yells out, "Don't answer that." I was like, I wasn't going to. And then 7 more intuitive, empowering, important, moving, caring, compassionate, and important questions. I was like, shit, we did make an impact. Okay. Wow. Great. Never going to do that again. Went home. Didn't think about it. 2.5 weeks later, Father Michael Harriman called me and said, "Kevin, would you come to the rectory? I've got something for you." I hucked up 2 miles. My dad was at work in my back brace and my cane, sweating through my back brace in a great deal of physical pain. I get to the rectory. I come into his office. I take my inhaler. I sit down. He hands me a manila envelope. I open it up. It's a pencil-colored drawing of the Sacred Heart of Jesus that one of the kids did. It was beautiful. I opened that up, 120 letters from 120 kids. Now, they were mandated to write the letters. They didn't all get together and go, "Let's all write to the suicidal guy simultaneously." But they wrote to me nonetheless, and they were given no parameters on what they could write. They were told to write to their heart's content. Several of them wrote of their active suicidal crisis. Today, those students are alive, and 2 of them are therapists.
So you did have an impact.
I definitely had an impact. And my father read those letters and turned to me. In one sitting, he read 120 letters. And he turned to me when he was done. He said, "Kevin, we have to do this however, wherever, and whenever possible, and we cannot stop." And we never did. 23 years later, 250 to 300 dates a year around the world, sharing a message that helps people decide to live. And I don't think I could ever be doing anything more important than this for me personally. This has been my catharsis. Whenever I am down, whenever I'm depressed, whenever I find pain, whenever I'm suicidal, I think about the people that say your story saved my life. And there are a lot of them. And I frankly don't know many people that can have the ability to say they've impacted directly hundreds of thousands of lives or millions. And I mean, one of my videos alone has been seen by 8 million people across the world. I'm not trying to boast. I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful that I get the privilege that God let me live that day so I could do something productive, hopeful, and powerful with my life now. And that whatever mistakes I made, whoever I hurt, whatever I did wrong in my life, I can find redemption, I can keep going, and I can just try to give back everywhere I can.
Well, certainly the impact you've had is greatly impacted people across even Northeast PA here, where I first heard about you. Um, One of the things that I wanted to know for you when you go out there and speak, and you kind of answered it, but when you do it, do you feel that that is almost your therapy on a daily basis to let everything out? Because I know how I was, whereas I couldn't speak about what I was going through. I couldn't.
Yeah.
But when I went to a therapist and I was able to, it almost lifted me up a little bit.
Yeah.
And do you feel that that's one of the other things brought into your life? Because maybe you wouldn't be here if you didn't have the opportunity to speak to as many people as you do, as many dates as you have. Is that something that you feel was also brought to your life to be able to do that?
It's the most cathartic thing and the most therapeutic thing I've ever done. Period.
And so
It
you in
it
general.
it allows me to release every day the pain
Mhm.
and try and when I look in the audience and I know I'm making an impact, when I see minds change in the eyes of people I'm talking to, um, there's nothing like it.
Where do you see, obviously, you in 5 years, and where do you see that the openness of men's mental health in the next 5 years? Do you think there's a pathway we can get to where it's accepted more?
I see that. I see that, I see that we have the ability to augment the direction we're headed in to help men, certainly men, be more open and honest. But if we're going to be more open and honest, the women and the other people in our lives need to be willing to hear our pain. There are some households where the significant other is saying, snap out of it, get over it, move on, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's all in your
Hmm.
head, which is what we need to change. We need to be open to saying if a man is broken and a man is hurting, he needs to talk about his pain so he can survive it, and not just get through, but actually heal. And there's a path toward healing. I think there really is. And I think that was something that was missing from my narrative for a long time. I've just recently come across a new friend and mentor, Keaton Hoskins, who's helped me learn how to not just survive, not just get through, but to thrive and to heal. And I think that's a very important perspective shift to have for someone. And I intend to endeavor to that end.
And the one thing that you just said actually impacted me a little bit, where you said about how you needed that person at home to be supportive as opposed to be like, well, because my first marriage was here I am, a boxer, I'm a fighter, and was going through a very tough time myself. And the answer I always got was, come on, there was no ever release that I could do. And it's no fault of her own. She did not know what I was going through. So it was hard for us. Now all of a sudden I'm in a marriage where that's accepted and says, hey, if you got a release,
Yeah.
because I understand that.
Yeah.
That is an important thing that men don't understand. That also the spouse is also significant, and you have a great wife with you.
Yeah.
Margaret is a great woman, a great
Margaret's
supporter
incredible.
of who you are. Support, and I see the pictures online. I see how she is with you when you travel. That is incredibly important, and that's a message I think you should give out too, as to how important your significant other is to you.
Yeah, don't settle. Find someone that's going to get your back no matter what, but is also going to listen to understand, not necessarily to respond. Someone who is going to be there for you in a way that no one else can, with unconditional love without fail. And then when you struggle, when you have strife in your life, when you are damaged and weak, they lift you up instead of push you down. I mean, it's absolutely crucial. If you live with someone right now who is more pushing you down than lifting you up, that's a problem you need to fix. And maybe it doesn't necessarily mean you end the marriage. Maybe it means you go to therapy with that person and help them understand what you need from them, and check in with them on a weekly basis and have like kind of homework assignments as to what you can do to benefit the relationship, to fix the relationship, to bolster the relationship, to get to a place of healing and recovery. I think it's really important to not only have someone get your back like that so you can help fight your pain even more, but someone like that helps you walk through fire unscathed and unburnt.
And I know we got to wrap up here quickly, but what I will tell you this, and I want my audience to know this. I just saw the energy in you when we started talking about your wife. It went like that. That I love that. I think that's that shows you how much of an impact someone can have. And I think my audience will see that. I really do.
She's my greatest gift. She's my greatest gift. And I've said this before. She's my greatest gift that I've ever been given or will ever be given, next to my faith in God. Margaret was brought into my life by God to shape my next experience in this life. And it's going to go on until we both die of natural causes.
And that's a tremendous thing to have. Kevin, I think you're doing a tremendous service to this community and service to everyone that's involved and has ever seen you speak. I know when I started listening to your stories, you've been on every podcast, every major media outlet that I can know of, to spread that out there. And I thought I was alone when I was going through my mental health issues. But when you reach out and you see there's a lot of people that go through that. Being in boxing, you do get hit a lot. It's something I do look at the future and say, I know how this could end, but if I could help myself going through this process and with people like you, I'm greatly appreciative. So if you could, anyone who is going through stuff like that, how can they reach Kevin Hines?
At Kevin Hines Story on all socials, youtube.com/Kevin Hines on YouTube. 800 videos there, all designed to better your brain health right now. Go to work.
Kevin, again, it is my honor and pleasure to interview someone like you. You don't know how much you've impacted me in my life, and you are impacting the world. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you very much, George. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks for watching the Zapata Brand Podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast and listen where all podcasts are available.